This video is made for adult collectors because this damn thing is huge. So the Ark. A new character put at a Titan price point. While it has an alt mode that appeals to a lot of Transformers fans, I'm not sure if making an entirely new character and pricing it at 230 Canadian dollars was a good idea. Titans shelf form. They just do. They're big ticket items at a high price point. They look good on a shelf and drive you into the Transformers section. You might not buy the Titan while you're there, but you will get there and end up like buying Studio Series Wheeljack or that Cyberverse Warrior Windblade or whatever. They're to drive you into the section, but they eventually do sell out, just not this one. It stayed on the shelves all the way past two other Titans, Black Zarek and Metroplex, and it's still for sale. So once it got heavily discounted, I got it, finally. It's been regarded by folks as the least interesting or the worst Titan, but is it? So the robot design has been growing on me. I do like the proportions, the anime-esque robot design, and like the skinny thighs, big legs or whatever. That just works for me as a robot like this. I also like all the details on him, lots of ship-type panel designs. It's not boring to look at, that's for sure. I also like the color breakup. The gray and orange look very good together, but the orange to me feels a bit washed out. Like, it feels like it's off somehow. It's really hard to capture this orange on camera because I'm using a really baseline DSLR. One of the things I really don't like though about this design is how far the chest sticks out. It's because of Mainframe and there's this folded panel stuff in there, but it just sits too far out to me, like too far down and too far out. It looks a bit jank from the side. From the front it looks fine, but from the side it looks weird. Now, he is a bit hollow in areas, the back of the legs, shoulders, and under the forearms. While they do have panels that come up to try and fill those up, at least, which, like, is cool, it doesn't work 100%, and so I know that will bother some people, so it's worth pointing out. Personally, I like them, though. There's a level of detail on them that's pleasing enough, and they give the limbs some interesting shaping to the inside, which I like. I also like how a lot of the painted parts feel like separate pieces. They aren't. But the way that they're tooled and painted makes them feel that way, and I like that effect a lot. Now, the not so good stuff. Well, the color matching's off. It's very hard to show you on camera, again, because this orange is just hard to film with the way my backdrop and my lighting works. But the palm versus ABS plastics just... in person, you can clearly tell the difference, and it's a lot more apparent in the alt mode. It has articulation issues, which I will touch on in that segment, and I'm not a fan of how he just comes with nothing to do. He doesn't come with a gun or a sword because of Mainframe and all the stuff he comes with, but it would have been nice to give him like a weapon to pose with. Kind of makes him feel less dynamic compared to the other Titans because he doesn't have anything to hold other than other figures, which is cool. Now, Mainframe. He's basically the main reason I wanted this figure, and he's also just meh. He ejects like Soundwave's cassette out of his chest and comes out looking like this brick thing. It's a big lump of nothing, but hey, it stores at least. I mean, this is basically just storage mode. I do wish these Titan companions, though, were given like a pseudo alt mode so they could be their own standalone figures outside of the Titans. I mean, this guy does have like PC gamer mode, but this brick would have been neat if like it was a mobile transport with treads or something. That would have been cool. Just gonna say this right now, that little computer thing that it comes with, the Vector Sigma looking thing, is lost. I had no fucking idea where it went. I was transforming the Ark one day and Mainframe fell out, hit the floor, and that piece went flying and I haven't seen it since. It's gone. I would recommend gluing that in because I glued Prime in because mine would not stay in any of the ports. It was annoying. I'll touch on the bridge detailing more in alt mode, but the robot mode just unfolding the brick out, and I remember when people thought this was going to be a Combiner Wars Silverbolt retool. Like, no joke, that gets thrown around a lot because it's a meme, but there were a lot of people who actually thought that it was a Combiner Wars Silverbolt retool, and I can kind of see it, but no, it is a brand new toy. And it looks odd. There's a severe lack of color breakup on this guy in comparison to the actual Ark. I really feel like he needed to have like gray thighs or something, because what's here feels too orange. Like I said, the Ark had a nice balance between the gray and the orange, but here it's just leaning more, it's like 70% orange, 30% gray, and I think it needed to be a little bit more on the gray side. He also has some weird proportions. The lower legs are chunky and he's got bell bottoms. The feet are barely visible. He also has the panels under his arms that severely impede his arm articulation. His light piping is glorious though, albeit it's the same color as the toy itself, so it looks weird. And I'm just surprised they gave us a mainframe. It's also big too, like Voyager height, so that's neat. His articulation is your standard fare, but the waist is very limited by the backpack. There's those panels under the arms and the weird way the legs are done. You can't get him into any sort of pose that looks good other than standing there and slightly in motion. But for me, he ends up just living in the Ark's torso anyways. I will say though, the fact that his accessories are all self-contained is quite nice. His transformation into Teletran mode is just flattening him out basically. There's a lot of panel flipping, and every time I use the right arm's bicep swivel, the thing just pops right off. Every time. There are panels you have to flex around other panels, and it's kind of thin, so it can get a bit precarious, but once in Teletran mode, it looks neat. Sure, it could use a little bit more detail, but it's nice to have a somewhat usable gaming PC for your figures. This also allows you to access the hidden goodies that are inside, like the scanning drone, which isn't mountable on a stand, so 0 out of 10, nor is it actually mountable on any other part of the toy unless you got a 5mm peg somewhere, so that's a bummer. And you do get 2 golden discs, which can only be put back in a very specific way. The other way, mine do not sit in place, and that's very annoying. But that's all the PC does. This has to be my favorite part of the toy, though, because of how random it is, yet how much it fits with the toy. It's neat. Now back to the large lad himself. How's his articulation? How is the robot only real form of playability? Not great. Okay, I have to do this. And my lights are in my way. I have to do this from over here again because he's big. He's big. But I have problems with this thing's articulation, and that really boils down to the choices, the weird choices that they made. Starting with the head. So a lot of the Titans we've gotten recently that don't have heads going up and down is because the head does something. It comes off or whatever, other than Omega Supreme. But this guy, it just swivels. Which is fine, but him being the Ark and that little Optimus Prime you get, he should be able to look down at least. I feel like that should be something that's mandatory for something that's supposed to be this big. Now the shoulders. I was warned about the shoulders. Apparently on a couple people's copies, the ratchets on the inside have exploded. Now, this shoulder sounds fine. It sounds normal, right? This shoulder, oh, sounds like it's going to absolutely explode. So I'm gonna have to take that apart and fix that after I'm done filming this. But that sounds horrible. Then you got in and out on another not so nice sounding ratchet. Bicep swivel on a nice sounding one. Elbow joint, which I think is the best sounding ratchet on here. Wrist ratchets, which I didn't understand why I'm sorry, I'm moving around a lot on the microphone. I didn't understand why these were ratcheted at first, but then I realized it's so that he can carry figures. But they're ratcheted and they go up and down, and then you got weird hand articulation, but that's just so that he can hold figures in, which I think is a neat gimmick. I like how he can like grab a toy just like he can on the box where he's grabbing Megatron. Now the waist. Again, none of the ratchets feel pleasant. There's a couple that do, but that doesn't feel nice. Like Metroplex's felt really nice. This doesn't. Hips. Oh my god. Yeah, again, that doesn't feel nice. That's the biggest rivet I think I've ever seen on a toy. They can go out. Oh. You got ratcheted thigh swivels. And I do like how this panel here is a separate piece from the rest of it. It just is cool. I don't know. I like that aspect. Now we have the knee. It bends all the way. So that's good. But I think the worst part of the articulation here is the feet. That is how deep the ankle pivot goes, and it doesn't go any further. That's it. That's all you get. That's nothing. Like, I think the reason is so that you don't break the sculpt up, because like they have these little fillers in here. But they've done that before. several times. Here's pipes. He's got that in there. You can't see that. Hang on. Here's focus on pipes, you idiot. Here's pipes. He has that little filler, but then you can continue going if you want to. They didn't do that on this, and it's really bothersome. You can't, that doesn't go forward and back, so you can't like actually put him in any sort of meaningful pose. It just, he's so limited in a lot of the things that he can do, and it's just bothersome. Because like, Black Zarak's more articulated than this, and he's a brick. This at least looks dynamic. It should be able to be dynamic, but you can't do that. And it's frustrating. The Ark's transformation is quite simple, yet a lot of the panels don't like tabbing in because there's no friction or clip points on those tabs. It happens around the middle of the toy and it can get very frustrating. The chest panel on mine also likes to flop down every time I try to transform it, and that also gets very annoying. But Ark mode, this is why most people buy this thing. It's big, it's chunky, and it looks like the Ark. Again though, the color mismatching is very apparent here. Again, it is very difficult to show on camera, but the nose cone especially looks extremely different from the rest of the toy. He does have the landing struts, but they lift the toy. He does have the landing struts, but they lift the toy off the ground a lot. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of how high he sits off above the ground, but there's a reason for that. At the back, there's a button. You press it and a ramp opens. Now, cores barely fit in there, like car cores do, but truck ones don't. But Micromasters fit in there as well, and you can put them in and then press the button and launch them out, which is a really nice feature. If he was any closer to the ground, though, it probably wouldn't have worked as well, so I get why he's up that high. It just looks funky to me. While we're back here as well, the engine detail is amazing. Love the way this whole thing is painted and how big they are. He comes with 2 blast effects that can peg into the thrusters, not very well, but they peg in to make it look like he's blasting off, and that's neat, but I wish he came with 4 blast effects instead of just 2, because you have to split them up and move them around, which looks weird to me. The middle of the sky, though, as I said, and the back, do not like tabbing in. The loading ramp splits down the middle all the time, and the thruster section weighs a lot, forcing the middle of the ship to split, and there's no hook tabs on the top, just flat ones. They need it to be hooked so that you can clip in, but they just don't clip in. You can still open the chest part to reveal mainframe. What? I just ripped a piece off the Ark in his folded up configuration, and there's an actual bridge detail on there, which is very nice to see. And then the spot where you can peg Tiny Prime into, there's actually several spots you can peg him into. But like I said, Vector Sigma computer looking thing is missing, so I gotta find that. This does make me want to get the Doctor Wu Micromaster figures to go with this, because they would scale pretty well, because the cores don't. They're way too big. I mean, same with Micromasters, because the Ark comes with Prime, but it's so small. Like, that's the scale Prime is supposed to be, and Micromasters are even bigger than that. But the closest toy representation we have to any sort of quote-unquote scale would be the Micromasters. That's all this really does, though. There's no third mode, which is rare for a Titan. The only other one I can think of is Omega Supreme, but Omega had the benefit of having lots of play features in the alt mode. This just doesn't. And that's why I think it's the lowest on people's list when it comes to Titans. It's not necessarily horrible, but it doesn't do enough to hit that Titan price like the rest of them do. Zarak and Metroplex both have 3 modes, weapons, ratchets that make sense, more color / better distribution of it, more in Metroplex's case. But the Ark just feels kind of bland in comparison. I got it for $85 US or 114 Canadian on Amazon during the Black Friday sales, and I think that's a worthy price for this. And my friend in the UK is able to find this guy used on Facebook Marketplace for like £70. Those I'd say are fair prices. Otherwise, I think the $220 retail it goes for here in Canada is way too much. It's a fine figure. It would definitely make a great holiday gift, that's for sure. But I would only get it if it's on deep discount. But that's my look at the Titan class Ark. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.